Hey, you guys, welcome to this episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And today I'm looking at Epic Economist's viral YouTube video, 15 Things the Middle Class Can No Longer Afford. And this is something that I feel like a lot of people are talking about and they're concerned about recently, because I talk to people every week on The Ramsey Show, and so many Americans are feeling inflation, they're feeling the pinch of their budget, and they're faced with some really big challenges in the world. So Epic Economist, he claims that there are 15 things that used to be expected for the middle-class family to afford, but now, because of factors like inflation or layoffs or overall decrease in job raises, that some of these are considered luxuries. So what's interesting is in the video, I feel like he used some Ramsey lingo, which I loved. So I just want to unpack the video and kind of just see what we think about this. So the first thing he says is that middle-class earners can no longer afford is maintaining what he calls the standard middle-class lifestyle. So again, this is very subjective. So what you may consider a luxury, someone else might not. Something that someone considers a luxury, you may not. So again, it all depends. It's a little subjective, but he goes on to explain that until 1990, the standard middle-class lifestyle included owning a home, having 2 cars or more, sending your kids to college, affording basic healthcare costs, traveling at least once a year, and having purchasing power, the ability just to have fun money and spend when you want. So again, when you look at all of these factors, things change, right? The housing market is way different than it used to be. College tuition is freaking insane right now. So yeah, some of these things on the list, I may agree with him that, yeah, it would be really hard. Now, the 2-car thing depends on what kind of car, right? If you're talking about like a luxury SUV versus a great Honda Accord, then I think the middle class, you still can afford 2 cars, but they may not be luxury SUVs that cost $100,000 a year, right? So depending on the car, I think college tuition, I think this is a tough one. I think saving for your kids' college is an important factor, but I think a lot of people, middle class and not, are struggling with debt payments, credit card bills, so many other things that are taking priority, which they should. Paying off debt should be more of a priority than your kids' college fund. But college is out of control right now. And so, I think it is hard for the middle class to afford that. But again, with college, people are going out of state. They're going to private colleges that some people don't even, look at different options like community college or in-state tuition, all of that. But college is a tough one. Again, the housing market is all over the place. And for a long time, people had homes and bought homes with 0% down. They put nothing down, and the banks were giving out loans to people that shouldn't have had those loans in the first place, AKA the recession in 2007 when the whole market went down. So I think at different points of our history, we've realized, were people overextending themselves? So that list, I think, could be argued different ways, but I get how some things today, yes, are becoming more further out for the middle class. And again, when I looked at the middle class, the range was anywhere from $47,000 a year to $141,000. So you have lower middle class, upper middle class. So I guess depending on where you are in that range too is going to make a difference. Now, on the same point, he also says that 72% of the middle class workers today feel like their income isn't keeping up with the rising costs of living. And I think there's a factor of this that is true. I mean, inflation is a very real thing. And when you just have your basics that are covered and it feels like we're in a pinch, I think it is true. But I also think the lifestyles we live today looked a lot different than 1990. Just an interesting fact. I binged to Laguna Beach the other day, which was like when I was in high school. It was one of the first reality shows. But even, seeing, they live in like the most expensive part of the country, basically. Like, right? I mean, you're in Laguna Beach. But their houses, some of them, they were not crazy insane. They didn't have these like massive kitchens and all of this. Elsie's dad and mom were building a very nice house in season 1. But the point was, I was like looking at this, I was like, oh wow, like if you put this kitchen on Instagram today, people would be like, oh, that's a small kitchen. Because today you're used to like this massive floor plans and white and everything. Like the aesthetically pleasing style of today and kind of what we expect today, I think has gone up. I think our expectations of life have gone up than they did 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So I think that's a very real reality that we need to think about. All right, next, I want to stop just for a minute on his number 3 and number 5 points. So number 3 was that the middle class earners can no longer afford is having a stay-at-home parent. And then number 5 is being able to afford the cost of preschool. So childcare is a huge dilemma, and it is so expensive, you guys. I mean, for some people, it feels like one parent's salary is basically covering the cost of childcare and schooling. And it's estimated that the average full-time preschool education in America costs more than $13,000 per year, which is a lot. And he argues that most countries with developed economies here, like the US, offer publicly funded preschool programs, just like public K through 12 education. And yes, we are so lucky to have public education here in our country. Shout out to all you teachers. But if you are in the middle of preschool in those years, it is so hard. So you have to keep in mind that it's temporary, but you also want to look at your budget to be able to say, okay, is it worth it? And I think a lot of people right now are understanding like, okay, this, two parents are working, and if 75% of their salary is going to preschool, is it worth it? Like, where do you plug in and not? And it's a really hard decision because a lot of people are feeling stuck in it. But I would say shop around, look at your options, look at your budget and say, okay, does it outweigh sending our kids to preschool in order to work? And you need to look at that margin because it's going to be really, really important. All right, number 6 is going to Disneyland. So I talked about this a few episodes ago on Smart Money Happy Hour. But this is a big deal because he talks about a 4-day all-inclusive ticket used to cost $70 per person in the early 2000s. And today it's $400. So it's expensive. And I think we see areas in life like this that you're like, oh my gosh, it's just becoming more and more expensive. And what's hard is if you are, lower middle class, that's a lot of money of your income to be going to Disney World. Like it is just mathematically looking at it. And so again, it's kind of defeating, but it has risen. The whole Disney brand, some of you are so mad at Disney, you're not going anyways, but it has. And I think I think they have outpriced themselves for the middle class. I mean, it's not affordable. I mean, it's really not. It's very expensive. And then there's number 11, which is paying for things in cash. So he is claiming that the middle class can no longer afford to pay cash for things. He says that 49% of the middle class earners are relying on credit cards to make ends meet. And another report says that 43% of the middle class plans to add to their debts in the next 6 months. So this is the place that I just know by talking to so many of you out there that this is not your life. Like you have truly decided that we're going to spend what we make. We're going to spend what we make. And even if that means that our lifestyle doesn't look like everyone else's, that means even if we have to say no, which sucks and that's not fun, but we are going to stay within our means to avoid going into debt. People are doing that. And I think debt has become more and more common as an avenue to get what we want when we want it. And again, we're talking about that lifestyle creep of what things were like, 10, 15, 20 years ago versus what we expect today. And I think our expectations have gone up some. But to be able to say, we may not be able to go to the nicest restaurants or shop at the most, organically pleasing, beautiful grocery stores. Like where you shop for your food matters on what you pay for it. And so it's all these choices that we all make day in and day out. But it is still possible for the middle class to pay cash for things. So I do want to hear me say that. Now, one of the last things that he mentions is that middle class families can no longer afford saving for the future. He says families making between $60,000 and $100,000 don't make enough money to save each month. And here's the deal. If you look at the average of debt, you guys, average car payment for a new car is $700. The average family owes about $16,000 in credit card bills. If you took out student loans and you have those student loan bills every month, all of these factors, that's a lot of your income month to month that is leaving in payments. That's what's happening. And so if that was removed, then you would have margin to save, right? I mean, mathematically, there would be more money there. And so, yes, things have increased. Everyday expenses have increased. And yes, people are feeling that effect in a very real way. But also, you have to understand that you are still making decisions with your money and your lifestyle and deciding, what am I spending my money on and what I'm not? What am I choosing to buy, like a car? What level of car are we choosing? Where are we shopping for our groceries? Our kids' education even, if we're trying to save up for college, where are we deciding and talking about that they're going? Like everything has a range. And it is hard today. I mean, I get it. And we hear from you guys all the time. Like it's really tough today. But making those decisions and knowing that you have the power though to make different choices is what is so, so key. So I know this has been a lot, but 2 main things I want you to get from this. Number 1, if you're feeling like your budget is tighter than ever, obviously you're not alone. And number 2, regardless of what the epic economist says, what the news says, what your sister-in-law says, like regardless of all of that, just remember that you have the ability to take control of your money. And we talk to people every single day, making all different ranges of income that are getting out of debt, that are saving up and paying for things, that are delaying gratification for the moment and having patience to put money aside. Like that is happening today. So I want you to hear that it is possible. And if you haven't been working the baby steps, if you haven't been doing a budget and being very diligent about where your income's going, all of that is gonna help you. But by going by the seat of your pants and just living life and not being intentional with your money, that's where a lot of people feel the strain and the stress. So the more on target you are with your money goals, the more purposeful you are with your income, the more peace that you're gonna have. So make sure to share this video with a friend who may need some encouragement. And remember to take control of your money and create a life you love.